What if the key to unlocking your mental and emotional potential lies not in avoiding stress, but in seeking it out? Could embracing your fears and anxieties actually make you stronger? We often get caught up in this loop of overthinking and putting things off, right? It's like our minds are conditioned from way back, shaped by everything from family trauma, society's expectations, stuff that happened in school, or just the fear of being alone. All these experiences can trap us in these endless cycles of negative thoughts, what we call rumination. And let me tell you, this is a major player when it comes to anxiety and depression. Our minds start seeing everything through this dark, distorted lens, even if life isn't all that bad. It's wild how our brains work, like these highways that get more and more worn in the more we use them. So when we're constantly thinking negative thoughts or acting out in harmful ways, we're just making those negative pathways in our brains stronger and stronger. But here's the thing. This also works the other way. If we focus on positive actions, like practicing gratitude or being optimistic, we can actually start rewiring our brains for the better. But no surprise, it's easier to fall into that pessimistic trap. Back in the day, being on guard and expecting the worst kept us alive. Our brains got this little almond-shaped part called the amygdala, which is all about that fight or flight response. People who were quick to react to danger were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. But today, the world's totally different. We're not dodging saber-toothed tigers anymore, but we are drowning in a sea of stimuli: social media, news, stress at work. Yet, we're not facing the same survival threats. What we do deal with are things like social pressure and constant noise, which can trigger the same ancient responses in our brains. Back in the day, getting rejected by your small tribe could mean death, but now we're navigating these huge societies and it's messing with our brains. So what do? We've got to learn to manage our dopamine levels, right? When the amygdala tries to drag us down into that pit of negative thinking, we need to activate another part of our brain that helps us take control, like flipping a switch to stop the negativity. It's all about training ourselves not to give in to those pessimistic thoughts. This is where cognitive training comes in, teaching our brains to let go of those negative self-views and break free from that emotional baggage. And, when we're talking about fear, whether it's fear of judgment or any of those phobias, it all circles back to that amygdala again. When it's in overdrive, it can spiral into things like social anxiety or panic attacks. But remember, anxiety itself isn't a disease. It's just that sometimes it can tip over into something more serious, like generalized anxiety disorder or social phobia. So it's crucial to recognize this and work on retraining our brains. As we dive into the power of embracing stress and rewiring your brain for resilience, I've also handpicked 4 incredible books that can take your personal growth even further. You'll find them linked in the description. And trust me, these reads are game changers when it comes to deepening your understanding and applying these concepts in your life. So when we start to really see and understand these psychological patterns, we're giving ourselves the tools to take control of our mental health. Instead of being stuck in this loop of negativity, we can start shifting towards a more mindful, positive way of engaging with the world around us. This kind of disorder is super tied to different types of anxiety, like social anxiety. In my own experience, it showed up as this intense fear of being judged by others. And honestly, getting over that fear of judgment means first accepting that there's always some risk when you step out of your comfort zone. But here's the thing. Staying in that comfort zone can lead to your brain getting stuck in its ways, reinforcing those same old fear and anxiety pathways. It's like the Jonah complex, where you're scared of greatness because your brain is trying to protect you from the challenges that might come with success. But staying comfortable has its own risks too, like holding back your growth and keeping you locked in that anxiety cycle. Our parents, they usually want us to live safe and predictable lives, right? They mean well, they're just trying to protect us. But at some point, you've got to break free from that safety net if you want to grow. It's like that saying, fake it till you make it. At some point, you've just got to face your fears head on to really move past them. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, where you talk through things with a psychologist, works wonders for phobias and anxiety. But when it comes to social phobia and social anxiety, the best approach is gradual exposure. Little by little, you expose yourself to the things that make you anxious, and your brain starts to get the message that these situations aren't actually dangerous. This is what's known as limbic friction, and it's that energy you need to push through procrastination and handle your anxiety. So yeah, if you want to beat those phobias, there's really no way around it. You've got to take that leap of faith. Gradually putting yourself in stressful situations helps you desensitize those fears. Over time, you'll start noticing that your fear of being judged shrinks, especially when you realize that your intentions are good. And let's be real, you can't please everyone. And learning to detach from other people's opinions in a healthy way is a big step towards being less anxious and more self-reliant. The fight or flight and rest and digest systems are like the yin and yang of our nervous system. The autonomic nervous system in particular runs the show when it comes to stuff like heart rate, breathing, blood pressure, and more. We used to think we had zero control over it, but now we know that breathing is the bridge between our conscious and unconscious minds. That means we actually can influence this system, which is pretty wild when you think about it. If you're finding value in these insights and want to keep growing alongside this community, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. And if you're able to, consider becoming a member to help us keep bringing you this content. So when you take a deep breath and really focus on extending that exhale, you're doing more than just relaxing. You're actually stimulating the vagus nerve. This nerve is a key player in the parasympathetic nervous system, which is all about that rest and digest vibe. The autonomic nervous system is split into two branches. The sympathetic, which triggers fight or flight and is controlled by the amygdala, and the parasympathetic, which calms you down through the vagus nerve. By practicing abdominal breathing, you engage your diaphragm, a muscle that separates the chest from the abdomen, and this simple act plays a huge role in helping your body relax. These days, a lot of folks are stuck in an overactive fight or flight mode, where the sympathetic system is in overdrive. This often leads to being overly fixated on outcomes, which ramps up anxiety. And anxiety is all about trying to predict how things will turn out, right? Like when young guys take meds like tadalafil because they're stressed about performance. This is all tied to that elevated sympathetic tone, which is also linked to things like premature ejaculation, showing just how much of this is beyond our conscious control. To deal with this, you've got to prep your brain, the real MVP when it comes to everything, including sex, by boosting your parasympathetic tone. There are a bunch of ways to keep your dopamine levels in check and dial up that parasympathetic vibe. When you get your dopamine right, you're better at managing your thoughts, avoiding negativity, and keeping your amygdala from going haywire, which means less anxiety overall. One super practical tool for this is NSDR, non-sleep deep rest, or yoga nidra. These practices help recharge your dopamine and crank up your parasympathetic tone, with benefits that stick around even after you're done. Plus, they're awesome for improving sleep, especially if you've got that initial insomnia, which often comes hand in hand with anxiety. By naturally boosting your parasympathetic tone, you'll find yourself feeling calmer, more focused, and more easily slipping into a flow state. In this state, dopamine and serotonin team up to help you achieve your goals and feel a sense of purpose. Understanding how dopamine regulation ties into the balance of the autonomic nervous system is key. It's like cracking the code to managing something we used to think was out of our control. Now, letting go of perfectionism and that nagging performance anxiety is a big step toward living a more balanced and fulfilling life. We often get so hung up on the outcome that it leads to things like imposter syndrome. You know, that persistent feeling that you're not good enough, and the fear that any minute now, everyone's going to realize you're a fraud. The irony? People with imposter syndrome often perform better because they're so detail-oriented and perfectionistic. But while this drive can lead to amazing results, it's also a pretty exhausting way to live. The good news is that you can still do well without carrying that heavy burden of suffering around all the time. Think of your brain like a muscle. It needs both strength and flexibility to function at its best. This is where the idea of cognitive fitness comes in. Just like you'd work out to build physical strength and flexibility, your brain needs a balance between cognitive strength, like self-control, motivation and focus, and cognitive flexibility, which is all about adapting, letting go, and effectively navigating negative thoughts. Cognitive flexibility is key when it comes to handling things like performance anxiety. Trying to control every little detail can actually backfire. Sometimes you've got to learn to let go and just roll with the punches. This idea is central to what's called the breaking the habit of being yourself module. It's about realizing that sometimes less is truly more. Now let's talk about something called the growth mindset, which was developed by Dr. Carol Dweck. She found that when kids are praised for traits like intelligence instead of their effort, they actually start to perform worse over time. This applies to us adults too. Instead of patting ourselves on the back for things like looks or smarts, things that are pretty fleeting and mostly out of our control, we should focus on the effort we put in and reward that. The real magic happens when you stop stressing about the outcome and start focusing on the process. It's about rewiring your brain to find joy in the process itself, to get that dopamine hit from just being engaged in what you're doing, and to reward yourself for the effort you're putting in, not just the end result. Shifting your focus to the present moment and what you can control is a game changer for living a lighter, healthier life. Let's dive into the idea of tipping the seesaw, starting with something called limbic friction. This concept is crucial for overcoming procrastination and anxiety. Limbic friction is the energy your emotional brain, or limbic system, uses to deal with challenging situations. When you hit a situation that demands emotional effort, this friction is what signals your brain that it's time to step up, grow, and adapt. This idea ties right into the growth mindset. Instead of seeing difficulties, shyness, or awkward moments as brick walls you can't get past, you can reframe them as opportunities to learn and grow. This kind of reframing is actually a form of cognitive training. It teaches your limbic system to see these challenges as chances to get better. Think of your daily challenges like a video game. Each obstacle isn't something beating you down. It's an opportunity to level up. This kind of cognitive training helps change how you see difficulties, making them less scary and more manageable. This mindset is what sets top athletes apart. They see challenges as essential for their growth. Take learning to ride a bike, for example. It seems almost magical that we can do it, but it only happens because we go through that limbic friction. We fall, we get back up, and we keep at it until the habit of cycling becomes second nature. This whole process is happening in a part of the brain called the nigrostriatal region, which is all about learning movements and locking in habits. So whether you're facing a new challenge or just trying to get better at something, remember that it's all about balancing that cognitive seesaw, building strength while staying flexible. The human body is a fascinating example of what's called an anti-fragile system. Unlike something fragile that breaks under pressure or something robust that simply resists stress, an anti-fragile system actually gets stronger through challenges. This is a powerful concept because it means that difficulties aren't just unavoidable. They're essential for our personal growth and development. This ties directly into the idea of limbic friction and something else called your behavioral repertoire. When you face challenges head-on and put yourself in situations that push you out of your comfort zone, you're building a mental and emotional toolkit. This toolkit, or repertoire, teaches your brain that it's okay to go through these experiences. They're not threats, but opportunities to grow. It's crucial for moving forward in a balanced and effective way on your personal journey. With this understanding, let's dive deeper into cognitive reframing and remodeling, tools that are key for tackling challenges with a fresh perspective. Letting go of negative emotions is a big step toward living a more balanced and healthy life. One powerful practice that's been a game changer for me in releasing emotions like fear and judgment is journaling therapy. Journaling therapy is all about writing for 15 minutes straight, letting your thoughts spill out onto the page about whatever's bothering you. The aim is to stay focused on the theme and really explore these emotions and experiences. Say you've had a rough time in a relationship, write about it. We've talked more about relationship dynamics in another video linked in the description, but you can use this practice for any emotional trigger that's weighing on you. A key idea here is emotional granularity, which is basically how finely tuned your awareness is of your emotions. The better you understand the different shades of what you're feeling, the more control you can have over those emotions. This helps you catch yourself before you spiral into cycles of pessimism or obsession, giving you the power to step back and detach. I recommend doing journaling therapy for 3 to 4 days in a row at first, so you can really see the impact. As you keep practicing, it'll become a habit, and you can use it whenever you need to. There's also a complementary exercise for when you feel a negative emotion creeping in. Observe it as if it's sitting in front of you. Give it a color or a shape, and just watch it without getting sucked in. This helps train your brain to see these emotions as separate from who you are. You're the observer, not the emotion itself. These practices not only boost your emotional granularity, but also have a proven effect on regulating stress and increasing serotonin, the feel-good hormone. Research shows that journaling therapy can even give your immune system a boost. That's because our emotions directly influence cortisol production, and too much cortisol from chronic stress can weaken our immune system, making us more susceptible to illness. By managing stress through these practices, you're not just taking care of your mind, but your body too. There's an interesting paradox when it comes to negative emotions. The more you try to repress them, the stronger they become. It's like they feed off that resistance. But when you take a step back and just observe them without getting too caught up, they start to lose their hold on you. Sometimes, this detachment can even make the whole situation feel a bit absurd or humorous. So here's the action plan from today's video. Start seeing every chance to face your fears as an opportunity to rewire your brain and build a healthier behavioral repertoire, using that limbic friction we talked about. Commit to journaling therapy daily for at least 3 to 4 days. Write about your emotions, your worries, and whatever's weighing on you. This practice is all about boosting your self-awareness, which is going to be key for the next phase, where we'll dive into relationship magnetism and explore how serotonin, the hormone of well-being, fits into this whole picture. Stick to the action plan to lock in what you've learned and start seeing the results you're aiming for. So as we wrap up, remember that embracing your fears and observing your emotions without judgment is key to rewiring your brain and building resilience. By practicing journaling therapy and facing challenges head-on, you're not just surviving, you're thriving. If you found this video helpful, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe for more content like this, and share it with someone who could use a little extra encouragement. Thanks for sticking with me until the end, and I'll see you in the next one.